Today, we're going to dive into a pretty remarkable story, and it's all contained within a single, powerful letter. It's a tale about a grand, almost unbelievable vision to change a nation, a critical, self-inflicted wound, and a dream that ultimately had to find a new home. Let's get into it.
Right off the bat, you know this isn't just any letter. It was sent directly to the President of the United States. The author had a plan so ambitious, so huge, it could literally remake the American landscape. So yeah, the stakes were incredibly high from the very first line.
So, who writes a letter like this? You might think it's some big corporation or a powerful lobbyist, but no, it was just one man, a retired U.S. Army veteran who felt he had one final mission to serve his country.
Let's get a picture of this guy. He's a career military man, now living out his retirement in Colorado. In his letter, he says he's a supporter of the president, that he admires his conviction. And from his home, what he calls his Western sanctuary, he drew up this incredible plan as one last act of service for his adopted country, America.
And the name he gave this vision? Well, it was powerful, really evocative. He called it the American Green Heart Project.
The scale of this idea is it's hard to wrap your head around it. This wasn't some small infrastructure proposal. We're talking about a massive geoengineering project designed to fix one of America's oldest and biggest problems, the lack of water in its vast, arid heartland.
And he actually broke it down into three, well, let's just call them colossal steps. Step 1. Bring seawater all the way into Death Valley and build massive desalination plants. Step 2. Pump all that newly created freshwater up to the Colorado Plateau to green the deserts and plains. And Step 3, as if that wasn't enough, carve out an entirely new waterway from Lake Michigan all the way to the sea in Canada. Just a breathtakingly audacious plan.
And he painted this incredible picture of a new America. You know, Death Valley, a place we think of as the definition of lifeless, would become a thriving sanctuary for marine life. Those dry, arid plains would turn into rich, fertile farmland. New forests would spring up, powering clean geothermal industries. And all of this would lead to what he called unprecedented prosperity and comfort for every American. It was a true utopian vision.
But then, the letter takes a sharp, really painful turn. The author pinpoints this one critical problem, a flaw in the system that he calls a self-inflicted wound, one that threatened to make his entire dream completely impossible.
See, he argued that a project this complex, this advanced, couldn't be built with just American know-how and brute force alone. It needed a very unique, very sophisticated skill set, specifically what he calls the essence of Korean scientific technology and the brilliant engineers who wield.
And here it is, the devastating twist in his story. The very people, the human essence of technology that he believed were absolutely essential to building America's future, were being forced out of the country.
He writes with this sense of complete shock about seeing top-tier engineers, people from huge world-class companies like Hyundai, being labeled as illegal aliens and deported. I mean, these weren't just any workers. In his eyes, there was a key personnel, the absolute brains he needed for the Green Heart Project to even have a chance.
You can just feel his disbelief here, right? He couldn't make it make sense. To him, kicking out the very talent the nation desperately needed was so nonsensical that he hoped, he prayed, it was all just a huge bureaucratic mistake, or maybe even the work of saboteurs.
So, faced with this new reality, the author makes a truly heartbreaking decision. If America wasn't going to be the home for his dream, then his dream would have to find a new home. His logic is pretty stark and simple. He basically concludes that he can't build his vision in a country that's actively throwing away the essential talent needed to make it happen. So, the project, he decides, has to move. This slide really just lays out the whole dramatic pivot. The dream for the American heartland is now being repurposed for the Manchurian wasteland. Instead of revitalizing a developed nation, he now has to build a dream from absolute scratch. And what's fascinating is that he actually sees Manchuria as the more realistic alternative, because the main obstacle in America, its immigration policy, well, that's not a problem for his team over there.
But the letter doesn't end in complete despair. In his final words to the president, the author offers both a pretty dire warning and, just maybe, one last glimmer of hope for his original American dream.
He makes it really clear that the American Green Heart isn't dead, not completely. It's just dormant. He holds out this hope that it could be revived, but there's one condition, and it's non-negotiable. America's policies have to change.
It has to become a country that welcomes these essential Korean scientists and engineers so they can work without fear.
And he's got a plan to prove his point. He says that this new, smaller project in Manchuria will act as a proof of concept. By transforming that wasteland, he's going to show America and the entire world that his grand vision for the American heartland wasn't some fantasy. It was always a tangible, achievable possibility.
And this all brings us to the central question of the letter, one that goes way beyond this single project. What is the real cost? What does a nation lose when it closes its doors and turns away the very talent it needs to build its own future?
And he leaves the president with this powerful, haunting final image. A patriot turning his back on the country he loves, walking away with the blueprint for its future tucked under his arm. It's a stark reminder of a dream that was lost and a potential that was perhaps squandered.